Today's subject is ego and the Bhagavad Geeta. All of us know what is ego, and that ego we believe is the self. And we also know two other words that deal with ego. One is about being egoistical, and the other is being egotistical. Many people don't know the difference between the two. Egoistical is a person who is basically concerned only with that which surrounds him. That's called being egoistical. The world must revolve around him. Egotistical is even worse, because egotistical means that the individual has an overly highly inflated idea of himself or herself, whether it's in terms of physical beauty, amiability, whether it is intelligence or position in life. Egotistical means one thinks no end of oneself. And both these are detrimental to functioning in everyday life. We have people who are only concerned with what revolves around them. So they are constantly egocentric. Their ego forms the center of everything that they do. And naturally, this gets on the nerves of people around them, because the less you are centered around yourself, the more you are going to be sensitive to other people's feelings, needs, and your duties towards them. Egotistical not only irritates but also aggravates people, because you sincerely believe that you are better than everybody else. So you have an extraordinary opinion of yourself. You think no end of yourself. That is egotistical. But what is ego? We know that the mind holds on to the ego very powerfully. Psychologists know there is what we call as ego defense mechanisms. A lot of interaction that takes place between one individual and the other is based on ego defense mechanisms. And these ego defense mechanisms we use to try to protect our sense of self, and also the self-interest around which our egocentric world revolves. Now, what does Bhagawad Geeta say about ego? What does Bhagawad Geeta say is ego? And while all of us know from basic psychology that ego interferes with our human relationships, and that ego is responsible for a lot of our problems, let's see what Bhagavad Gita has to say about ego. Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita, while explaining the nature of the individual, of you, says, Bhumi apo nalo vayu kam mano buddhir evacha ahankara ityam me bhinna prakriti ashtada. Earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence, and ego. These, Krishna says, are the 8 components of my inferior material energy. Bhinna. This is part of my inferior separated energies. But is that all that you are? Earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence, and ego. Is that all what you are? So in the next verse, which is chapter 7, verse 5, Krishna explains, Aparyam itastvanyam prakritim vidhi me param jiva bhutam mahabhao yayedam dharyate jagat. Besides this inferior energy of bhumi, upon nalo, vayur, kam, mano, buddhir, ahankar, there is something that is beyond this inferior energy. O mighty armed one, you are one of the embodied souls who indeed are the jivas who are sustaining and maintaining creation. Aparayam itastvanyam prakritim vidhi me param jiva bhutam mahabhao yayedam dharyate jagat. So you indeed are not the Prakriti. You are nothing but Purush. I've covered this earlier. You can refer to the earlier lectures. Purush is the soul, the individual soul, the result of the Supreme Purush impregnating Prakriti. And because the Supreme Purush impregnates Prakriti, all of us are born. Essentially, we are Purush and we carry with us the Prakriti of gross and subtle matter. The gross matter is known by us as flesh and blood, of the elements that we can see, hear, taste, touch. The subtle matter is that part of Prakriti which we are unable to sense. That's why it's called subtle. Our senses cannot perceive what is subtle. So that part of your body which is subtle, which cannot be perceived, is called the subtle body. And this includes your mind, your intelligence, and your ahankar, or your sense of self. Your sense of self is that part of you which arrogates, which says, aham ma mameti, I, me, and myself. Ego is that mistaken belief that you are Prakriti. If you want a one-line definition. Ahankar is the mistaken belief that you are Prakriti. When you transcend Prakriti, when you transcend this belief, this false belief that you are Prakriti, then you become situated on the platform of Purush. You become situated on the platform of Brahma Bhut, the universal ground of creation. So, the moment you think, I am, this body. The next step is, most people when they say, I know I'm not the body, they really believe they are the mind. So if you are not the body, if you are not the mind, not the intelligence, not the ahankar or the false belief that you are all these, when you transcend these beliefs, then you become situated on the platform of Brahma Bhut. Brahma Bhut prasannatma na sochati na kankshati sama sarveshu bhuteshu mad bhaktim labate param. When you are situated on this platform of Brahma Bhut, on the platform of spirit, you will be free from hankering, free from desiring, free from grasping, free from wanting, free from greed. And you will also become free from lamentation. You will become free from sorrow. You will become free from depression. You will become free from anxiety. And at this platform, on this platform, you will get supreme devotion to God, which is called Parabhakti. But as long as you think that you are the Prakriti, so long you will keep on suffering. So long you will keep on suffering. So let us understand why you suffer. You suffer because you become attached through identification with Prakriti, your body, mind, intellect, sense of self. But my dear friend, while your spiritual identity, the Purush, the soul, individual soul, is indestructible. Krishna says this in chapter 8, verse number 3. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Aksharam Brahma Paramam Swabhavo Adhyatmam Uchyate Bhuta Bhava Visarga Karo Visarga Karma Samhita. And the Lord said, this indestructible spiritual ground of which your individual soul is part of is called Adhyatma. It's called the individual soul. Whereas whatever pertains to Prakriti, with which the individual soul is associated, whatever happens to Prakriti and whatever happens to its development is called karma. So when you have understood that Aksharam Brahma Paramam Adhyatmam Uchyate, so you believe that you are the soul, you are free from change because you are indestructible, you are unchangeable. But if you think that you are Prakriti, which is your body, which is your mind, which is your intellect, which is your sense of self, you are always changing. Adhibhutam ksharo bhavaha purusha chadi daivatam. Adi yagno aham evatra dehe dehabritam vara. Your body is changing all the time because that is the nature of Prakriti to change. In 1 year, using radioisotopes, they have shown that every molecule in your body changes completely. Every 7 years, they have demonstrated that your structural part of every part of your body changes completely. So therefore, understand that you are not a statue, you are a flame. You are not a statue, you are a flowing river. It's just the appearance of a form, just like a flame has the appearance of a form, and yet no molecule in that flame remains the same. So also when you look in the mirror and you see yourself, you see a form, but that form indeed is constantly changing. As I said, every molecule in that body changes, and in 1 year, you will find that every single molecule has changed. And over a period of 7 years, the structure will also change completely. Krishna points out, Dehinosmin yatha dehe kaumaram yavanam jara tatha dehantara praptir dhirastatra muyati. From infancy to childhood to youth to maturity to old age, and finally at the time of death, you will change your body once again. Did you always have this body? Were you not a child? Were you not a teenager? Will you not be mature? Will you not grow old? And when death comes for you, will you not need to leave this physical body of Prakriti? So this is the nature of Prakriti. It is always changing. And the more you are attached to this Prakriti, the more you will suffer, because you are becoming attached to something that is changing. Indeed, becoming attached to anything in this world will cause you sorrow. To become attached to the sense of self, which is nothing but your Prakriti in the form of flesh and blood, in the form of I, me, myself, your mind, your intelligence, your ego. The more you become attached to these, the more you suffer. That is why this attachment causes suffering. And this world is called Dukh Alayam Ashashvatam. It is called Dukh Alayam Ashashvatam because our attachment to our Prakriti, which we imagine that we are as a result of Ahankar, is constantly in distress. This is a anityam, a sukham lokam. Nothing in this world lasts. And indeed, you cannot find lasting happiness here. Krishna says, Janma mrityu jara vyadhi dukkha doshanu darshanam. Birth and death, old age and disease, fault and misfortune, unhappiness. These are guaranteed to everybody. And the more you are attached by thinking that you are this Prakriti, this Adi Bhutam, which this Adi Bhutam is nothing but something which is always changing. Adi Bhutam Ksharo Bhavo. Your Prakriti is always changing. And the more you think that you are this thing and you believe that it is unchanging, the more unhappy and more frustrated you will become. You define yourself by your work, one day you will either have to retire or you will have to change your job. You identify yourself by your wonderful physique. Over a period of time, over a period of aging, over a period of overeating, your physique will be destroyed. Similarly, you think that you are very intelligent, but over a period of time, you will find that your intelligence will become degraded. In fact, if you get a disease like senility, if you get a disease which causes degeneration of your brain, then where is intelligence? Indeed, where are you? We think we are very calm and very peaceful and emotionally well settled. But let life put you through its mixer grinder and let age reduce your patience. And you will see that your belief that you are peaceful and placid and wonderfully situated emotionally will also be destroyed. You cannot attain equanimity of mind through psychology alone. You have to learn to transcend Prakriti. You have to learn to transcend this false belief that you are this body of flesh and blood, this mind, this intelligence, and this false identification with all these as the self. This is not the self. The self indeed will constantly cause you sorrow. Indeed, even the activities you perform within the world will not be successful if you do not learn to give up your sense of self, your ego. Who says that? Well, friend, Krishna says that. If you go to chapter 18 and you go to chapter 50 and verse 57, Krishna says, Chetasa sarva karmani mai sanyasya matpara buddhi yoga muprapashritah macchitta satatam bhava macchitta sarva durgani mat prasadat tarishyasi atho chet tvam ahankaran nashrosasi vinamshasi. Chetasa sarva karmani mai sanyasya matparah buddhi yoga mupashritya macchitta satatam bhava macchitta sarva durgani mat prasadat tarishyasi atho chetvam ahankaran nashrosasi vinamshasi. Dedicate every activity to me, to God. Make God your supreme goal. Make me, Krishna, your supreme goal. Use the yoga of the intellect. Unite your intellect with God. Keep your consciousness absorbed in Krishna always. And if you are constantly remembering me, Krishna says, by my grace you will cross over all obstacles within the world. But if you think I am doing it, if you think that your Prakriti is doing it, if you think that your body, mind, and intelligence is doing it, you will suffer and you will perish. So, very simple. If you think your Prakriti, you will perish. If you think your Prakriti, you are subject to karma, because Prakriti acts according to the laws of karma. So, if you want to become free from karma, understand you're not Prakriti. If you want to be successful in the world, in your work, become free of ego. Become free of the identification with your Prakriti, and you will optimize the success of whatever you're doing within the world. So you should understand that the more you identify with Prakriti, the more you suffer. Just imagine, for as an analogy, that you buy a new car. And when you buy a new car, of course, no matter what you paid for the car, you have instant depreciation as you drive out of the showroom. But you are carefully driving this car, and you are now on a very bad road because the monsoons have just started and the roads have not been repaired. And the car, one wheel goes into a huge ditch. and you get a big jhatka in your car. And you say, damn it, look at the way they don't maintain the roads. What a terrible thing. You're so upset that you got a new car and you've just gone into a pothole which has caused you to realize that some sort of damage must have been done to your car. But if you're sitting in the same car and that is owned by your friend who has driven it out of the showroom, you won't get upset because you don't identify with that car. When it goes into a pothole, you'll say, wow, what a suspension. How wonderful this car is. You could hardly feel the bump. I say, this is a good car, good suspension. So what was the difference? The difference was that when you bought the car, you identified with it and you thought, this is mine. And because you thought this was mine, you experienced suffering. Whereas when his car went into the ditch, you said, wow, what a suspension. I hardly felt the bump. Because you don't identify with the car. You don't take ownership of the car. The same thing with your body. The same thing with your mind. The same thing with your intelligence. As long as this ahankar is present and you have not transcended this ahankar, you are open to suffering. Because on one hand, Prakriti is constantly changing. On one hand, it is very obvious that your Prakriti, this Adibhutam, is Ksharobhavo. It is perishable, it is constantly changing. So as you become attached to it, things change. As you become attached to something, things will change. This is the nature of the world. So how do you become free from suffering? You become free from suffering when you transcend the ahankar. You transcend the ahankar and you identify with Purush. And thus, whatever happens to the body, whatever happens to the possessions of this body, you are able to withstand with equanimity of mind. Dukheshu anudvignamana sukheshu vigata spriha vita raga bhaya krodha stitadi muni uchate. When you identify with the Purush rather than with the Prakriti, when you disconnect from this false belief that you are this body, mind, intelligence, this ego, then whatever happens to this Prakriti doesn't affect you. You are not disturbed when there's cause for sorrow. You are not excited when there's cause for joy. You are free from attachment, fear, and anger. Jetatmana prashantasya paramatmah samahitah sitoshana sukha dukheshu tatha manapanayo. For one who has conquered his mind, for him God is already reached. For him heat and cold, joy and sorrow, honor and dishonor, they're all the same. Because having transcended your mind, having gone beyond the mind, having gone beyond the intelligence, having gone beyond this false sense of self that I am this mind, intelligence and body, you are the same in heat and cold and joy and sorrow and honor and dishonor. They affect you that as little as possible. For you, even the things of the world matter less. For you, a rock and a piece of gold are sama loshtrashma kanchana. A rock and piece of gold have equal emotional value to you. Indeed. Surin mitrari udasina madhyastha dvesha bandhushu. Sadhushu apicha papeshu sama buddhir vishishyate. Whether it's a friend, a well-wisher, somebody who's neutral, somebody who's a mediator, somebody who acts like your enemy, somebody who's a saint, somebody who's a sinner, you look at them with equal vision. Vidya Vinaya Sampanne Brahmane Gavi Hastini Shuni Chaiva Svabhakya Cha Pandita Samadarshinaha. So whether you look at a Brahman, a cow, a dog eater, an elephant, you look at them with an equal vision. Emotionally, you look at them with equal vision. So this is the result of transcending Prakriti. This is the result of transcending your illusion that I am Prakriti. Indeed, even when you have different moods emotionally, you are still situated on a platform of peace. Prakasham cha pravrittim cha moham eva cha pandava na dveshati sampravritani na nivritani kankshati. So whether you are in Tamagun, in Rajagun, in Sattvagun, you are indifferent. Whether you are in laziness or sloth, or you want to go to sleep, or you want to rest, that's wonderful. If you are active, that's also wonderful. If you are situated in Sattvagun, that is also wonderful. You are independent of the moods of your mind and situations of your body. So how does one reach that state? How does one bring about dissolution of the ego? There are many ways to bring about dissolution of the ego. One of the ways, of course, is to renounce the world. So shave your head, wear orange robes, abandon everybody and head out. Very soon, over a period of time, over a period of suffering, intense suffering, you could possibly come to the realization that you are not this body. Provided you apply yourself to very severe sadhanas. You may lie down on a bed of nails, you may stand on your head for indefinite periods of time. You may sit in meditation, chasing your mind as it chases the thoughts. All these and more. You could struggle with your pranayam, you could keep on doing fire yagyas. You could keep on engaging in various techniques for annihilating your ego. But there is a simple way to annihilate the ego. In the Bhagawad Geeta, Krishna says, Dhyanena atmani pashyanti kechid atmanam atmanah anyecha sankhyena yogena karma yogena chapare. Some realize their true identity with Purush through meditation. Some realize their true identity of Purush through Sankhya Yoga, through the philosophy of knowledge, where you have to break down everything into its component parts. And you see nothing as whole, but you see everything in its parts. You could do this also through working in a spirit of devotion and renunciation. But what if you don't have time for all these? Sukadeva Goswami had no time for all these. He had 7 days in which to live. 7 days with which to confront death. And the 7 days he could not engage in learning meditation, learning Sankhya Yoga, in working with devotion. He had 7 days. What would he do? Anyetva evam ajananta shrutvanabhyo upasate te api atitiranta eva mrityum shruti parayana. Simply, Krishna says, by listening to the glories of God, simply by hearing the message of God in a spirit of devotion and mental renunciation, not physical renunciation, one can cross over suffering in this world just by listening. Just listen, that's all. Through the process of listening, you will gain devotion for Krishna, God. And when you gain devotion for Krishna, God, when you begin offering all your actions to Him, when you begin chanting His name so that your mind is never kept unoccupied to be filled with things of the world, when you do all these things which help you to remember God and forget yourself. Everybody remembers God. Even the atheist remembers God. But who remembers God so as to forget themselves? When you remember God so as to forget yourself, you transcend ahankar, you become situated on the platform of spirit. Vasudeva Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Prajita Janayati Ashu Vairagyam Jnanam Chayadaitakam. When you worship God in the manner which is prescribed, as I told you, remembering Him in a manner so as to forget yourself, what will happen? Knowledge and renunciation will come to you naturally, effortlessly, unasked. They will be yours. You will become free from suffering. You will become free from karma. You will become free from the cycle of birth and death. By following Krishna, you will become a dharmatma, even if you have been a great sinner in the past. Api ched sudracharo bhajate mam ananyabhak sadhureva samantavya samyak vyavasito hisa. Shipram bhavati dharmatma shashvat shantim nigacchati kaunteya pratijanahi name bhaktya pranashyati. Even if you performed abominable actions in the past, you will still become, you should be known as sadhu, because very quickly you will become a dharmatma. Api chedasi papebhyo sarvebhyo papakritamah. You may be the greatest sinner amongst all sinners, doesn't matter. Api chedasi papebhyo sarvebhyo papakritamah. Sarvam jnana plaveneva vrijinam santirishas. Indeed, Krishna says, even if you are the worst sinner amongst all sinners, seated on this boat of divine knowledge, you will cross over this ocean of suffering. Yatha idhamso samido agnir vasmasat kurute arjuna. Jnana agni dagda karmani vasmasat kurute takha. Just like firewood is converted into ashes by fire, so also all your karmas will be converted into ashes by this fire of knowledge. Therefore, Krishna says, Sarva dharman parityaja mam ekam sharanam vraja. Aham tvam sarva papevyo mokshayishami masutta. Abandon all other varieties of religion. Remember me, forget yourself, surrender yourself unto me completely. and I will save you from all sin, never fear. So become free from suffering, from heat and cold, and joy and sorrow, and honor and dishonor. Become free from good luck and bad luck. See everything as coming from by the will of God. Tena vina tranamapi na chalati. Not a blade of grass moves without his consent. Indeed, rise above this prakriti by learning to remember God in a manner that you forget self. So I'll pause here. If you have any questions, feel free to answer, to ask me any questions you want.
Good morning, sir.
Yes.
So I'll start with our first question. So the awareness of self, does it make us more sympathetic than empathetic?
What does that mean?
So that means when we are sympathetic towards the other, that means we are looking at them from a point of, okay, they are not all right, but empathy means feeling their own pain.
No, both definitions are wrong.
Okay.
What is the question? What is it? What is that person wanting to ask?
The question is the awareness of self. Does it make it more sympathetic than
Awareness
empathy?
of yourself, awareness of someone else's self.
Awareness of our own selves.
The more you are aware of yourself, the less you are aware of other selves. Therefore, you become self-centered. And you, in fact, become less sensitive to the sufferings of other people. The less you are aware of yourself, the more you are aware of God who's in the hearts of everybody around you. The more sensitive you are to what their feelings are, you're more sensitive to what's happening in the world. And the more inclined you are to serve them and help them to relieve their suffering. Is that clear?
Sure, sir. So, related to this question only, I have this one that we feel happy or sad when we create feeling or attachment with someone or something. So, does the awareness, self-awareness, make us emotionless? I mean, because with self-awareness, we are not able to,
I
attach
think
or
you
create
might have,
any emotion.
you should hear my lecture which I've given on emotional intelligence in the Bhagawad Geeta. There are several stages. First stage is called experiencing reactive emotions. So you experience heat, cold, joy, sorrow, honor, dishonor, pain, pleasure, depression, anxiety, excitement, all that you will experience because the world will press the buttons that you have. The second stage is when you become sthita prajna. When you are the same in heat and cold, joy and sorrow, honor and dishonor, pain and pleasure, free from attachment, fear and anger. That is the second stage. The third stage is that when you rise above all these reactive emotions, you are able to generate proactive emotions. Therefore, just like a surgeon selects his tools, what should he use now? Should he use a scalpel? Should he use a needle with thread or with absorbable suture material? What should he use now? That the surgeon selects his tools accordingly. And that is how you choose your emotions to interact with the world. So emotional intelligence is at three levels. First is reactive emotions, where you are completely unintelligent emotionally. The second is sthita prajna, where you have learned to cross beyond your reactive emotions. And the final stage of emotional intelligence, when you are able to, from a platform of equanimity, you are able to choose the emotion that will serve the occasion and is most appropriate for that person and that situation. Is that clear?
Yes, sir, definitely. And so with that, I'm moving to the last question of this session. So, do we have to remind ourselves every day who we are? Because there are many roles that we play as a sister, as a mother, the profession we are in, and so on. And how do we remind ourselves, keep on reminding ourselves who we
Of
are,
what?
of who we really are while playing all those roles
What do you mean
as
by
a
who
mother?
we really are?
Like, as you have said, sir, that we are the Purush, but we identify ourselves
But
as
let
the
me understand let me explain what we mean by Purush. Purush means you are nothing. You are nothing material. You are avyakta. That means you cannot be seen, heard, smelled, tasted, touched. Right? You are beyond form and formlessness. You are not formless and yet you have no form. Both. You are beyond form and formlessness. You are also achintya. You are even impossible to imagine. So I can't even explain to you because you are beyond imagination. So the best way to put it is that when you are situated on that platform of Purush, you are a nobody who knows he is doing nothing. Because God acting through his Prakriti is doing everything. So to be a nobody requires you to remember God and forget self. That's all. And then you understand, I am nothing. Right now, God has given me the role of mother. Right now, God has given me the role of wife. Right now, God has given me the role of child. I have to deal with my parents, and so on and so forth. But you are nothing, just like an actor who plays the role the best is the one who is nothing, not the movie star. The movie star plays himself in every movie. If you take a movie star, he plays himself in every movie. That's why he's a star. And people like that. And then there are people who act the role of a woman, even though they're male, or act the role of a male when they're a woman. They play the role of an aged person. They play the role of a young person because they truly are able to put themselves in the stage of nothingness. And the stage of nothingness allows them to be anything. When you choose the path of remembering God and forgetting self, and you become nothing, God can make you anything. Is it clear?
Yes, sir, that was very beautiful. That means the all the roles that we have to play, it all comes naturally when we forget self and remember
Yeah,
God.
because you have nothing to block that role. Na?
Exactly. So that was all, sir, for today. And thank you so much for such a beautiful
Okay.
answers. And thank you so much.
Hari
Jai
Om,
Shri Krishna.
Krishna, Hare Krishna.
Jai Shri Krishna. Thank you so much.